What's going on, everybody? We're going to recap today, but I'm also going to talk about a lot of trading patterns that have been happening time and time again recently, and they have a very high strike rate of playing out. Let's start off by recapping the day really quick. Our trade plan was holding below 32 or above 32 to dictate our bias. We did hold below that level, so we were looking for 415, that value retrace of yesterday, and we were looking for a retrace into 400, which was that retrace into Thursday's value low. So both of those retraces were complete, and we ended up being a lowercase b, pretty bearish for most of the day. This did offer a very good bear flag and a VWAP trade right out of the gate, and also had another bear flag and a VWAP in the afternoon to the exact tick. I'll cover that here in a second. Before we move on to Addis, let me show you one of those patterns on TradingView here. So this chart is a market profile chart. If you guys are not familiar with how to read these charts, be sure to check out my video, How to Trade Market Profile. But for this pattern, what you want to keep an eye on is the initial balance. People talk about initial balance all the time, and basically what they're referring to is that first hour of the day. So if you're looking at a market profile chart, that would be the A and the B session. The A session is from 9:30 to 10 o'clock. The B session is from 10 o'clock to 10:30. Now, if you're looking at my chart here, this little white bar right there, that is the initial balance. That takes the high and the low of the A and B session. Now, the pattern that I wanted to show you guys is what we keep seeing after the initial balance has been formed. What we keep seeing is the initial balance is either forming the high of day or the low of day. It is very, very likely that it will have the high of day or the low of day by the time the candle closes, the day closes, right? And let me just quickly show you that really quick. You can see today, the A session was the high. Yesterday, B. Same thing here, same thing here. And I'm not going to go over every single one, but this is basically every single day this month. The past like 30 trading days, it has happened nearly every single day. Okay, if you want to backtest that, you can. So how do we trade this, right? What does that mean? How do we use that in our trading? So what you want to look for and how to use that is once the initial balance has been formed, once we have that 10:30 close, right? We have 9:30 to 10:30, first hour of the day. So starting at 10:31, we are paying attention to that high and low of that initial balance. Once one side of that has been taken out, that other side that has not been tested is very likely going to be untested for the entire day. Okay, so in today's case, when we had that C candle start to break the initial balance low right here, we could say with a very high likelihood this was the high of day, and it was not going to be tested. So you could use that in your trading as like a resistance. Maybe you could put your stops up there, whatever. You could also use it in your trading as a breakout trader, right? If you're a breakout trader, we know that this break is very likely going to be a strong break. We've been seeing that for the last like 30 days, probably even more, but I've only backtested it like the last month. So that break of that A session low has told us that this A session high very likely going to be the high of day, but it's also told us that that break is probably pretty strong. We are probably going to get at least a 100% extension of that initial balance. So if that initial balance is 20 points, then we could probably look for 20 points below that. If we want to go for 200%, we could go another 20 points, right? So that's how you could use that in your trading. Now, one other thing you want to keep an eye on is recently, this has been happening as the low of day. Most often, these have been forming the lows, right, when it's very bullish. But look at what's happening the past couple of days. Past couple of days, we've been forming the high. And we have been decently bearish these days, okay? So if you're a swing trader, you want to keep an eye on that for kind of a directional bias. Which side of the market is in control. Okay, that's one of our patterns that has been playing out time and time again. Before we go on to the VWAP trade that I want to show you, Another pattern that we keep coming back to is this afternoon breakout pattern. This keeps happening time and time again. If you build a profile that shows you from 9:30 to 12 o'clock and then from 12 o'clock to the close, so the afternoon, every time we break out of that morning high or morning low from 9:30 to 12 o'clock, that value is typically a trap. That value is typically retraced either the same day or the following day. So if it's not retraced the same day, look for it the following day. So for example, this breakout right here, they tried to retrace the same day, couldn't do it. It was retraced the following day. Okay, so it's kind of a swing trading pattern. You can't use it too much in your day trading unless you're looking for that immediate retrace right around the open. But just keep an eye on that. The afternoon breakouts, anything after 12 o'clock is not being respected. They are pulled back into the close, like I said, the same day or the following day. Okay. All right, another pattern I want to go over is something that we constantly talk about on our live stream. It's the bear flag into VWAP. This trade is happening time and time again. Just keeps happening and it keeps paying very often. So what you want to look for on this trade is when you have a sell pressure in the morning periods, typically in the first hour, maybe the second hour of the day, you have a strong bearish bias. Then you start to pull back either quickly or slowly, preferably slowly, back into VWAP. Today was a little bit quick. You pulled back into VWAP pretty fast. Let me zoom in here so you guys can really see what I'm talking about. So we had sell pressure, and then we pulled back into VWAP. This is where you want to look for those trades, that bear flag into VWAP. You want to be a short trader on that pullback once that sell pressure starts to come in. So keep an eye on that. And then once you have that sell, you're targeting the prior low. You're always targeting the prior low. Okay. Whatever that low was that started that bear flag back into VWAP, that is your target. Now, whether you actually target a break into a new low or you're just targeting kind of where the buy pressure came in, that's kind of up to you. Depends on how aggressive you want to be on your exit. But you want to enter on that pullback into VWAP. You want to short that. Your stop loss wants to be above prior value if possible. If it can't be above prior value, then you just want to give it like maybe a 4 to 5 point stop loss, depending on how much you can get with that prior low. You typically want that prior low to be at least 1.5 to 2.0. So if it's giving you 10 points, then you could risk 5 points, right? So you want to target that prior low, stop loss above prior value. If you can't put it above prior value, then make sure you're getting at least a 2 to 1. So there was a beautiful bear flag in a VWAP trade right out of the gate around 9:57. And before I show you the next one, let me show you one more thing that has been happening a lot recently. And that is the morning sweep. We keep seeing these strong impulses out of the gate, like out of the 9:30 open, either up or down, doesn't matter. And that strong impulse starts to get reversed almost immediately. I would say within like 10 to 15 minutes. And that creates a 30-minute sweep. Now, in today's case, that created a low sweep where we broke out very aggressively to the upside, and then we swept that prior high. The prior 30-minute high was around 38. So once you swept back below that level, you broke it, put some buy pressure above it, trapped it, and then came back down. That was a sweep trade. Stop loss above the 30-minute high, targeting VWAP, targeting prior 30-minute lows, whatever. There's many things you could target, right? But stop loss above the prior high, and then targeting prior value. But that is a pattern you keep seeing time and time again. That morning impulse right out of the gate. If it's very one-directional, it's not lasting for too long, and it typically causes a bit of a sweep. Okay, so moving on today, one thing I wanted to note is if you did take that bear flag into VWAP, today was extremely trendy. And when you have these very strong trends, you want to be watching a couple of things. You want to be watching the 30-minute highs as that one time frame effect. So if we're trending aggressively, we're going to be breaking the 30-minute lows and protecting the 30-minute highs if we're trending downward, right? If you're looking at my chart on stream, the purple candles mean that you're breaking the low, you're not breaking the high. So you are one time framing bearishly, okay? So that's one thing you want to keep an eye on. The other things are the EMAs and the OTS trails, right? So the 8 EMA, the 24 EMA, or if I pull up my other chart, you could also watch the trails. So these dotted lines here on the Oasis Trading Speed Indicator, it's kind of like a 24 EMA, very similar. Keep an eye on those when you are trending very aggressively. So then you trended down pretty much the entire day. You had a really nice bull div down here on the Momo. You did not have a bull div there on the divergence, or sorry, the delta, excuse me. But you did have a divergence. Let me pull it up here on the Momo. Very obvious divergence on the Momo there. Lower low on price, higher low on delta. And that was pretty much the low of day. You tried to break that low a couple times. You actually did break it a little bit. But for most of the day, that was the low. So very strong bull div there. And then after that bull div, you actually had another bear flag in a VWAP trade. Look at this one. This was to the literal tick. You hit VWAP there on the high, and then you put in a lower high, and then collapsed. So same thing I said earlier. You want a short VWAP. You want your target to be the prior low. So in this case, that low there, or you could have targeted this low here. And then you came all the way down, you hit your low, right? And obviously this is a very big move, so you might have wanted to trail that out, maybe trailing the EMAs or trailing the OTS trails or 30-minute candles or whatever it may be, right? Whatever you want to trail. But normally when you target the prior low, you don't want to target like a new low every time, because that means you need to have significant sell pressure. Obviously, in this example, you did get a new low, but usually you want to target kind of where that buy pressure was coming in. So in this case, it would have been anywhere around like 408 down to like 404. Okay, just depending on how aggressive you want to be. But yeah, those were the best trades today. You had the sweep out of the open. You had the bear flag into VWAP. You had the bull div here, the bullish divergence. And then you had the other bear flag into VWAP. So very high strike rate trades that we talk about pretty much every single day. But all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this recap. Hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.